Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Hey, welcome back to Search Talk Live. We are live on the air, speaking to everyone on iHeartRadio.
What's up?
iTunes, and a bunch of other places I can't think of right now.
We're all over the place, Rob. We are literally all over the place.
With me is my co-host, Caleb McKelvin. Caleb?
Hey, the one and only. My crowd, my groupies clapping for me. I like it.
I never get that.
I know, you never get it. Yeah. No, man, we are back for another awesome show. I'm so excited. We had such a good show last week, and we're just going to build off of it this week. So we appreciate everybody joining us, and we're ready to get started.
Yeah, now, those of you the first time listening in, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. We are a digital marketing podcast radio show, because we are on the radio as well.
Yeah.
But we talk everything digital. It could be pay-per-click. It could be search engine optimization, which are my two expertise, and as well as Caleb. Social media, you name it. I mean, we cover it.
Yep.
We try to bring on guests every week, top of the line guests.
Yeah.
I mean, like people that speak at SMX and all the different marketing conventions. We try to bring you as much information to help you succeed online as possible.
Right.
And we give you nothing but best practices. We don't try to get anybody in here that's going to try some black hat techniques or anything like that.
Right. Well, we like to get guests on here where you and I are going to learn something as well. We always want to get the best, and we learn.
Absolutely.
Every show we're learning something, and today's going to be no different. But if this is your first time listening, go check us out on searchtalklive.com after the show, of course, if you're not listening on Search Talk Live, and just look at go through our shows. There's something for everybody, and you can learn so much.
And be sure, when you go to searchtalklive.com, you can go on the right-hand side of the website is a subscribe form.
Yes.
Fill that out, because you can subscribe, and we send you all kinds of updates and special offers. We have guests that come on and actually give away things and exclusively to our listeners. So
giving away books, giving away all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and we don't spam you or anything. We send out something once a week, maybe twice a week. But it's well worth it being on that. And you can follow us on Twitter at Search Talk Live. And let's get on with the show. So, Caleb, you want to introduce our man?
Yes, so it is Moz Month, or the month of Moz here in May. And this week we have the one and only Dr. Pete Meyers, marketing scientist at Moz, joining us today. Dr. Pete, how you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time and dropping some knowledge on Search Talk Live listeners.
Yeah, we listen to a lot. We read a lot of what stuff you post.
Yes.
We really appreciate what you've contributed to the industry as a whole, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. So, people are just tuning in and they don't know exactly what a marketing scientist is. Could you kind of explain this and give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, well, it's kind of made up. So.
Hey, there you go.
At least the doctor part, right?
I can understand that. When I joined Moz, I had been working for myself as a consultant, and we had built a couple projects together, and one of them was the Mozcast project, which I run, which kind of tracks how Google changes from day to day, trying to pinpoint those algorithm updates that we're always chasing. And so when I kind of joined the team, I said, I don't really know if I want to be on the data science team or on the marketing team. And so I just kind of copped out and met in the middle. And that's actually been a really great decision, because it's kind of let me move between teams and work on product and work with engineering and work with data science.
Right.
And work where I'm needed. And that's sort of what I wanted, was not to get pinned down. But, what's fun is that I get to do that research and I get to dive deep into the data science, but then I get to go on the blog and talk about it, and I get to go in shows to talk about it. And so I get to contribute to the marketing too. And so, it's been cool.
Yeah, so that's a pretty awesome job to have.
Yeah, well,
if you're geeks like us.
Yeah, well, you got to stay pretty busy. If you pretty much keep on track of what's going on with algorithms and search. Very analytical. You kind of get down and dirty with it, so to speak. So that's kind of be a pretty busy job there for you.
Oh yeah, never bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's we're going to talk today about some keyword research and what are proper ways to do it, and best practices to follow. And And maybe touch on a little bit, because Moz recently released a Keyword Explorer.
Yes.
Which is, I've had the opportunity to use
Pretty
in the
cool.
last few days, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's a great tool to have in the tool belt.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind kind of explaining what it is and actually, what sets it apart from other keyword tools and how it's going to benefit the SEOs in the industry.
Yeah. So we're excited about it, of course, and I won't claim we're not biased, but I've been involved in the project for probably going on about a year now. And so the core problem is there's a lot of tools out there for keyword discovery, and there's this process that we use, which is, let's say your buddy wants to sell T-shirts and he wants to do SEO and he doesn't know anything. He goes, I want to rank for T-shirts. You go, all right, that's not going to happen.
Right? Yeah.
Is it
So,
good luck.
at least not for the $3 a shirt you make right now.
Right.
Sell 10 shirts a month. So let's dig in, and what can we rank for? Maybe it's blue T-shirts and red T-shirts and ACD T-shirts and Game of Thrones and whatever. It's a topic or it's a niche or it's a color or a size. And so we dig in and we go to Google Suggest and we go to SEMrush, we go to all these different tools and we just do searches and we gather as much as we can, and then we end up with 10,000 keywords,
right,
that he could possibly go after, and he's got a budget of $180 a month to go after these 10,000 keywords. So even if you had a budget of $18,000 a month, 10,000 would be a lot.
Yeah.
And so, that process by itself, that discovery process is hard because it's really easy to just tack keywords on there, take everything you have and add small to it and add blue to it and add, whatever to it and end up with this kind of stupidly general list.
Yeah.
But so we wanted to do that better, but we also kind of wanted to take it a step further and say, well, once I have that list, what do I do with it? What am I really looking for? And what I'm really looking for is not just which keyword gets the most traffic, because I'm not going to be able to compete on most of those.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be kind of the sweet spot for me, is that one keyword. And that's, that may even not be what converts or what what is going to work for me. And I have some innate knowledge of, hey, what am I really going after and what's going to convert? And so when we set out, we really wanted the tool to kind of, not fully automated, but kind of helped with a guide. I can't think of it as like guided intuition. Like, I have this process. I know what my process is. I gather up all these keywords and I have this way to do it. I make a giant spreadsheet and then I have some intuition about what's best. But that's so time consuming and so manual. It's so subjective. Our intuition, like, we all think we're really smart, but we fool ourselves a lot of the time. And so how could we build something that kind of worked with us on this process and automated some of it and matched the way we think? And so that's what we set out to do. And so it is a tool of discovery. You can go in and just type in a keyword and look and see what comes up. It'll give you a bunch of options from a wide range of topics. We even have our own keyword suggestion model we built in the last couple of years. Our data science team has built. It's very robust. But then you can also get those into a list and it'll start to tell you things. And that's about sort of what the opportunity is there. And that's the part I've been involved with, is those metrics. So at Moz, we've had a keyword difficulty score for a while that kind of just, look, compared to other keywords, this is how tough the competition is for that SERP. If we look at that first page and we look at who's ranking, this is who's out there and this is how hard it's going to be to compete. And so we beefed up that. We're looking at things like the features, which is where I'm really active. If that SERP has 6 site links because it's a brand SERP and it's got a knowledge panel and it's got news and tweets and local and all these things and an answer box.
Yeah.
Your actual opportunity to rank on something organic, is going to start at about position number 5, and it's carved out everything but 2 or 3 results. The number of actual opportunities for clicks, it's pretty small. And so we want to get some of that involved. We wanted to look at volume too. And so in the end, what we ended up with was this set of metrics and this unified potential score that basically says, hey, if we look at the volume of that keyword, if we look at the difficulty of ranking on it, if we look at the actual potential for organic clicks and how important it is to you, we're going to let you tweak that and say this one really matters. Okay. What's kind of the tally on that keyword? And by itself, knowing it's a 43 doesn't mean much. But when you've got 1,000 keywords, the magic of this is to kind of dig in and tell you, look, this is where you should start.
Yeah.
This is the sweet spot for you.
Yeah.
I have to say, I come from the old school. Like, I've been doing in the SEO industry for 13 years now, and I used to do all this stuff manually. Like, I would have to compile all this information, put it together. And I mean, just the time it took.
Oh yeah,
it was ridiculous. So like,
a lot of us still do.
Yeah, yeah.
We're kind of our own. Even the people who build the tools, a lot of times I spend half my day in Excel, and we're kind of our own worst enemies because, of course, we think we know. We think we know better,
right?
And we do sometimes. But
have you ever compared what you came up with to what the tool's coming up with? I mean, pretty right on. Well, you helped build it, so it probably does, right?
The tool is just as smart or just as stupid as I am.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's
it's Dr. Pete 2.0.
The way I look at the metrics, and this is why we try to be really transparent. I had a blog post today about some of the math. I look at it as kind of assisted intuition.
Right.
I'm not trying to build a tool that's a black box and spits out one number and just go, this tool's smarter than you. You don't even try and figure it out. We're trying to give you all the data points so you can go in and say, hey, you know what? I believe it on this one. This is really helping me sort things out. But, I know this keyword converts. Like, this is the one.
Yeah.
And I've set that one up, the importance really high. We're going to give you that option. Or I just really want to kind of know difficulty because I don't care about the other features, or I don't care about this or that or the other thing, or my client only wants to know about this. So I'm going to look at that and use my own model and take these metrics. And because, we know a lot of our clients are smart people who have been doing this for years. And so whatever gives them that little bit of, I think of so many tools as semi-automatic.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it all myself. I don't want it just to do it for me and spit something out that I don't know whether to trust or what's behind.
Right.
I want a little like electric motor on my bike. I want it to kick in when I'm going up the hill,
Yeah.
There you go. That's a good analogy.
I trust that, I still know what I'm doing. I still get to steer.
Right.
So that's what we set out to do.
Yeah. I just want to say, if you want to call into the show and you have questions for Dr. Pete or myself or Caleb, you can call 855-722-0006, option 1. We are powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com. We are now talking to Dr. Pete Meyers of Moz, Talking Geek.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Pete. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. So I was just saying that was kind of the logic of it, was how do we replicate that process we know we all have, but can kind of be hard to pin down into numbers. And, and it took a while, and it took a lot of arguments.
How long were y'all working on it?
It's been, Rand started pushing for this probably about 2 years ago.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So a lot of thought went into it.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, whatever people feel about it, yes, a lot of thought went into it, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of time and research. And some of the things are new. Some of the ideas and the metrics are new, and so we expect in the next 6 to 12 months they're going to evolve a lot, and we're going to kind of see, hey, what are people really searching for, and how are they really using this? And
I'm sure you'll get a lot of feedback from the users, and maybe suggestions and stuff. And y'all are really good at that, by the way. I use Moz Pro, so I can tell you that there's always somebody there. Hey, can we help you with a question or something like that?
Yes,
and it's they're right there. They get the suggestions and they actually take them to heart. So
I cannot take any credit for our customer care team, who is very good at what they do.
Yes, on point.
So let's see. What now? There's SEOs out there that have this perception that there's no need to do keyword research anymore due to the semantic search and all that stuff. What would you have to say to people like that about that?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, in a sense, they're right. To some extent, Google is interpreting keywords a lot more. We suspect that RankBrain has something to do with that. I don't want to just make up stuff about RankBrain, because we could we could do that all day long, and a lot of people have. But we expect that Google is trying to learn how to relate different queries. They're looking at queries more conceptually. And so the days of just stuffing in every variation of a keyword and, treating that as job well done in a sense, I do think they're over. Google is definitely smarter about understanding what terms mean and how they relate to each other.
Right.
But the way we see it is that at the end of the day, any traffic you got from Google still started with somebody typing in a keyword.
Yep.
And for all the research I do about knowledge graph and verticals and all these things and how they're slowly taking over SERPs, any organic traffic you got still started with an organic click and a search.
Yeah.
And so that isn't gone. And whether it's mobile or voice or whatever it is, even if Google is interpreting it or if it's very long or if it's natural language, they started with something. So I think there's a layer of trying to understand how Google interprets queries and how much of that they're doing.
Yeah.
Actually, I hope to talk about that at MozCon in the fall, is trying to figure out, how many queries do actually get reinterpreted as something else by Google.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know that, but that's still a layer in the process. And
Right.
to say that completely removes keywords from the process, well, we know that's not true. We know I had to type in something. One exception, which is tricky and we're trying to understand over time, is Google Now.
Yeah.
Which we call queryless search, where I go on my watch or I go on my phone and Google is trying to predict what I want to know,
Mm-hmm.
In that personal digital assistant way. And they're giving me my local team scores and my traffic on the way to work and news I might be interested in without me typing anything.
Yeah.
But that's still a pretty small piece of that pie. I mean, it's going to expand over time, but there's only so many things that they can magically predict I want. If they know I go to work at 8:30 every morning and they know my route and they see that there's a traffic problem, that problem is very, very well served by something like Google Now. And if I can pop that up on my watch, excellent. But there are so many things that just don't work that way. It's a much more diverse problem than it used to be, but they can't replace all of search with that.
No. Well, I mean, you're still going to. I mean, as far as there's so many variables with links to the sites and the clear message to those sites, and there's like we always say, there's over 200 different
right.
But there's just a lot that goes into that. I mean, it's not just the keyword, but definitely you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Most of the time, those searches, whether they're on your phone or whether they're on your tablet or your desktop or whatever, you still type something into that box.
Yeah.
And that's still our reality, and I think that'll be our reality for a long time, even as these other modalities come up.
Yeah, and I think obviously semantic is playing a large part in it now, semantic search and the Google Now stuff. Like, some of the stuff that they demoed back when it first came out, the Google Now, when they were showing how searches, say, for example, where's Mount Everest? How high is it? How they were doing that? Those different search. Nobody searches like that.
We actually saw. They showed an example at a show. I don't remember which one it was, where somebody stood next to the Eiffel Tower with their Android phone and said, "What is this?"
Really?
And it could use They were testing how it could use your location to tell what you were standing near.
Damn!
Wow,
that's pretty.
And that's really cool. But that's a small percentage of problem. I mean, if you can do that, that's amazing for 0.1% of things,
right?
Less. But how do you optimize for that? And how do you, okay, sure, that's a whole different world. That's not replacing me trying to find a new car,
right?
And that's the trick right now. Is I think search is diversifying, and so many things impact a very, very small number of people a lot. And that's kind of been our challenge with the feature space. So I'll give you an example. I don't know if you've seen the medical content in the knowledge panel. So you type something like depression, and Google is actually, it looks like a knowledge panel, but they're building content. It's custom content. It's custom images. They're actually becoming a content creator, which is fascinating and a little scary if you're in the content space. That has been incredibly disruptive to the people in that industry.
Yeah.
But for us as a tool provider with 24,000 customers, I don't know what we have right now for Moz Pro, that's a tiny fraction of a percent. That's a handful of customers we have that might be impacted like that by that. How do we surface that in a tool? If I go write a blog post about that, 17 people in the world care, and they care a lot. That's life and death for them.
Yeah.
But on average, it's nothing. And so that's the trick. So many of these things are really, really important to a very, very small number of people. But on average, most of us are still typing in a keyword.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the travel industry, Google seems to have the monopoly on that.
Yeah, no, there's certain things it's once they step in, I don't know what you do. And people in those industries don't know either.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing like recently in the knowledge graph that you would like to share with us that, that you think that maybe going forward they're going to push more on or that type of thing?
Yeah, a couple things. So this isn't technically knowledge graph in Google's terms, but it comes out of it. So, knowledge graph comes out of these fixed knowledge sources, things like Wikipedia, where they have human curated content.
Yeah.
So, I want to know a celebrity's birthday or the date of when is Mother's Day, that kind of thing. This is factual content that they have databases of. And the core problem with that is we know from the entire history of search that human curation can't keep up with content creation. We're creating things a million times the pace of what somebody can go in and curate and put in a Wikipedia and put in the database manually. And so Google kind of had to go back and go, if we want to go beyond search results and we want to answer questions, if you look at something like an answer box, we want to pull an answer from the knowledge graph without waiting for somebody to curate that. And that's especially true internationally. If we want to be able to roll out the knowledge graph across the world, we can't wait for that to be hand edited by someone in every country in every language. But we've got this massive index of the whole World Wide Web. The whole internet, we got a database of it. What if we could find answers in that? And so I think featured snippets, when they launched those, so that's the result. It looks like an answer, but it's got an organic link.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to kind of move beyond the fixed knowledge graph that they have to wait for people to update, to open up their entire search index to knowledge, their entire database, be able to go in it and find answers.
Yeah, but what percentage of those are, they're getting that answer right there in the SERP. So what makes them, what percentage of that is clicking through to that website?
We don't know for sure, but it's pretty high.
Yeah.
It is surprisingly, it's much higher than we thought. Yeah, we would have thought that they were just kind of taking that answer and that was it. And a lot of times that answer isn't, if it's a knowledge graph answer, if it's when is Mother's Day, you're kind of done.
Right.
All those sites that used to say datetime.com or whatever, they had all these holidays. Yeah, you're kind of done. But if it's not that clear factual answer, if it's a recipe or how do I do this or something that's a little more subjective or what are the best foods for iron, you're probably going to look at that and go, wow, that's cool. And it's going to get a lot of attention and you're still going to click through. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing that, I call it ranking number 0. That top spot is very powerful right now. And it's the only thing we can compete for that's above number 1.
Yeah. So what can people do? I mean, obviously having SEO, there's an optimized site, but adding rich snippets and all that stuff, how can they get those graph things to show up? There's no control of that, right?
Well, there is a little bit. Yeah, we unfortunately right now structured data doesn't seem to help all that much.
Okay.
Google is pulling that out of anything they can. Lists, tables, straight HTML. They have to be able to get it without us, without every webmaster in the world structuring it, because most of us don't. It takes pretty advanced knowledge to go in and create these rich snippets, things like that.
Right.
But the one thing we see is if Google interprets something as a question, and that can be pretty broad, there's a lot of queries like CRM or global warming, where you're going to get a featured snippet, because they look at it as a what is question. So it's kind of an implied what is. So we're seeing quite a few. What they seem to want to see is that you have to rank on page one. So it is an SEO problem.
Okay.
But once you rank on page one, you have to be a fairly good match to the question that they think is being asked.
Gotcha. So they're not pulling a site that's in the SERPs page 3 or whatever. They're pulling it from a site that's already ranking page 1.
Exactly. So
Okay.
you have to clear that hurdle. But once you clear that hurdle, the interesting thing to me is, let's say you rank number 7 on page 1.
Right.
And the people above you in 1, 2, or 3 are just huge heavy hitters. You know, it's Wikipedia, it's YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going, wow, for me to get from number 7 to number 1, that's going to cost thousands of dollars, and who knows what the return is going to be. But to get that snippet, to get number 0,
Mm-hmm.
you really just have to be a better match to the question.
Gotcha.
Right now, you don't have to necessarily be the most authoritative site on that page. You can jump from that number 7 spot to the number 0 spot.
Right. So you need to be the long tail specific.
Yeah, you see, it seems to be pretty. I mean, Google isn't happy about this, and there was a Molly at one of the conferences sort of said, "Hey, don't rewrite all your content to answer questions just to get feature snippets," which sort of told me that, hey guys, this is probably working, and we wish you'd knock it off.
Yeah.
Right.
So right now, it's I won't say it's simplistic, but it's sort of keyword relevance oriented. I mean, it is kind of. I did one. It's in one of my decks, but we have metrics, page authority and domain authority,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was a feature snippet, an answer for what is page authority that wasn't us. And we thought, okay, well, we invented this. We'd like to be in that box,
Right.
for multiple reasons, not just clicks, but for branding. And so we rebuilt our page. Our page was not very well structured. And so we did things like we called the page, what is page authority? And we put a nice header on it. And we put a TLDR kind of answer right in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
And we got that box.
Nice.
You know, and I think it's going to get more complicated than that.
Sure. Well,
Over time, like anything, it's sort of easy when it's new.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'd also argue, and the thing that's interesting to me, I don't dig deep into gray hat stuff these days. But you know what I like about it is, I feel like we can objectively say we made that page better.
Right.
You know, we made that page a better answer. We made it easier for a searcher to understand. We made that succinct answer somebody could tap into, and so that's okay. You know, we didn't pull some trick to take that box. Were we trying to manually get it? Yes. Okay. Sure. If you call that gray hat, any attempt to move up the ladder, yes, then guilty.
Right.
It's more of a strategy than.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like what we did was ultimately think about what would make a better answer.
Yeah.
You know, what are people asking? What does Google think they're asking? And if that's what Google's going to put out there, then that's going to kind of match the search intent. And so,
what kind of time frame?
I think it's a win-win kind of thing.
Yeah.
What kind of time frame did it take once you restructured that? Was it the same page, or did you redirect it, or?
It was the same page in that case. We've done it a couple times. When they first launched, it took a few weeks, and we don't know why, but now it can be a matter of, it's real time as far as we know. This is not a knowledge vault kind of thing. I hate to use that term because I know it got thrown around a few months ago, but they're not taking all this and putting it into like a knowledge graph V2.
Yeah.
This is being done during the algorithmic process. This is being done in real time. So they're looking at the results that come back. Actually, it's interesting. If you ask for more than 10 results, like, which no normal searchers do, but as SEOs will go in and say, give me the top 100.
Yeah.
You can actually pull one from the top 100, but for a normal search, they're going to do the ranking, they're going to pull page 1, and then they're going to choose from page 1, and that's done on the fly.
Gotcha.
So as soon as that data is recached, you should theoretically be eligible.
Right.
We see it happen pretty quickly now.
Right after the crawl, and then
Yeah. Once it's in there.
Yeah.
Now, does it always work? No, it can be a little weird.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me because to me it is sort of this It's like, hey, I'm already on page 1. You think I'm good enough to be there? So how do we just tune our content up to do a better job? And the first example, the first time I came across it was I had a post called "How Much Does Google Make?"
Mm-hmm.
from 2010, and it was this really weird post where I got in like a design. You get stupid sometimes. You're like, I need to do more design in my post.
Right.
I'm in my purple phase, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I decided, well, I'm going to try and like visualize how much money Google makes. And so I made all these weird visualizations, like whatever they made in 2010, it was at the time, could buy half of the world a Justin Bieber CD. I drew like the globe. It was a really weird post. And it was last year or 2014, I want to say, that they were popping up a featured snippet for that.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. Like it was
funny.
It's typing, how much does Google make? You got this nonsense back.
Right.
That was 4 years old, and
get your Justin Bieber CD.
I don't remember what it actually pulled, but it was 4 years out of date and stupid. It made no. And so it was funny. I said, what if I just wrote a new intro to this post?
Yeah.
That basically caught people up. Like, what did they make last year? Because if somebody's just typing that, they don't want to see my weird drawings of Justin Bieber and lightning bolts, and
That's awesome.
It's really strange. If you want to see that, just Google "how much does Google make" and read the post. But truthfully, the answer box is probably more useful than the post.
Yeah.
So we just updated that, and we said, let's put that data front and center for the people who just want to know that and then want to move on. And that updated,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of I think that's the double-edged sword for Google right now, is that by opening that up to the index, by it coming from our content,
mm-hmm.
we can change it.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets a little tricky for them.
Right.
I bet that post was getting a lot of bouncing.
Oh, yeah. No. It's a weird post. Yeah.
If you're just tuning into the show, you were listening to Search Talk Live with Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin. You can call into the show at 855-722-0006. That is 855-722-0006. Hit option 1, and you'll be directed to our main man, Dave, managing the phones and the board for the show, and we'll get you on air. We do have Dr. Pete, the marketing scientist at Moz, on the show today live. So get your questions in while you can. We are sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can visit robertpalmercompanies.com. Check out everything they have to offer. Yeah,
don't be afraid to call in.
Yes.
Because we love questions. We love our listeners calling in and asking questions.
Yeah, you can call in. Once again, it's 855-722-0006, or you can tweet at us at Search Talk Live. We also manage that during the show. So get your questions in, and Yeah, and
Peter, I actually proposed this to John Mueller. When he was on the show, I said, I've got the answer for Google. Why don't we make Google search results an infinite scroll? Then everybody would be on the first page. He didn't like that.
How did John feel about that?
He didn't respond too well about that one.
So we think they experimented with that.
Yeah.
Some point. Yeah, there were reports in the wild that people were seeing it, and it did not stick.
Huh.
So we have a feeling that was a little tricky.
Because my whole thing was, I'm like, you're trying to be more mobile friendly. You pulled off the ads on the right side, put it all in a line. I'm like, this is perfect, because then a person on the phone can just
keep on
down.
Scrolling.
There's your answer.
My suspicion is it has a lot more to do with the ad theme than the search quality.
Yeah, for sure.
But
it would also make our jobs very. We would have to write a lot of code real fast,
right?
Real quick.
You're like, hey, you're on the first page.
Oh, great.
Number 50. No.
Yeah.
No.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, are you? Do you have a question?
Yeah. Well, no. I just wanted to. I know you are kind of the Mozcast is kind of your thing. I don't think too many of our listeners who are kind of kind of new into SEO in the industry and don't know much about it. If you can kind of touch on Mozcast, what it is, and kind of what people will learn there and find there.
Yeah. So it's just at mozcast.com. It's kind of started out as kind of an 80-20 sort of project, and I joke now that basically my whole job is 80/20 project. I just have 5 80/20 projects instead of a real job, which is fun, But it started out with this something I heard. So we obviously, if you're an SEO, we track the algorithm updates and we try to name them. So Penguin, Panda, and even people outside of SEO know some of those names now. And we do, in our peak, maybe a dozen a year, and as few as a handful, where we say, okay, something definitely happened.
Yeah.
And back in, it was a few years ago, and I don't remember, 2012, I want to say, Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google at the time, testified before Congress about something competitive something, I don't remember what it was. And in his printed statement said that year Google had made something over 500 updates, over 500 changes.
Huh.
Wow.
And now we know that number's been repeated a couple times and has gone up. So we suspect it's in the 800 realm right now. But they have given us, I think they gave us numbers after that were above 700. And even on Google's site, they mentioned some of it. Now, what was interesting about that, they released some other numbers, like how many tests they run, and it's in the tens of thousands a year. So that's just the things that stick. And so I think what was really interesting to me back then was, well, wait a minute, we've named half a dozen of these, and there were 500 plus.
Right.
Yeah, but were they updates to, the existing, or was it updates, different algorithm update?
Well, they were changes.
Okay, gotcha.
So we don't know for sure what that number refers to.
Right.
But there was an implication that it wasn't just UI kind of things.
Right.
And we know for a while they published those updates of things they changed every month, which weird. They published it, but it had weird code names, and they were in that range. They were 30 to 40 a month.
Mm-hmm.
They were publishing that. Some were really small. Like we rolled out Penguin for queries in Swahili. And you go, okay, well, it's great if you're there, but
right.
Sure, some of them were really small, but it felt like there was just a lot we were missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started to look at this idea of what if we just took a bunch of keywords and we kind of built a laboratory. We didn't, and other people have done this now, and actually one launched as we were, Searchmetrics launched their tool, I think, as we were working on ours.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of one of those ideas that the time was right for. It's like sometimes 4 things launch at the same time, and you go, yeah, maybe we all were thinking about this.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to take our customer data for various reasons, and because it changes, we kind of wanted to build this lab and say, what if we took so many keywords, and at the time it was actually started with 50. When we launched, it was 1,000, but when I built it first, it was 50. And we just looked at them day after day, every 24 hours or so, to see what changed.
Yeah.
And it turns out that, and this has been a 4-year journey now, it turns out that what changed is a whole lot every single day.
Yeah, right.
And so it turns out most of us don't have any idea how dynamic search really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did a post a while back where I looked at a couple queries, and one was like Xbox Live, and it was changing. If you checked it every hour, it was changing every hour.
Yeah.
It was changing every time you queried it, because this is a real-time thing. And it's not just about the algorithm, of course. People are releasing new content all the time.
Right.
Sure.
You look at a big news outlet and a big topic, how many articles just went out about Donald Trump while we've been talking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Google is caching some of those almost as soon as they're published. And so it's not just the algorithm that's there and changing. And so we really started to dig in and learn about what's normal. What's a normal change and what's an abnormal change. And we created this weather analogy kind of, and said, well, we're going to peg a normal day at about 70 degrees, and we're going to look for those hot days. And we were really lucky because we rolled out the first real version of Mozcast about 3 weeks before the first Penguin update.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We saw a 90-something degree day. And we said either we're really lucky or we're on to something.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started. And what we found is that a lot of things that there's a lot of noise, and finding the signal is really hard. But I guess what we found is that there are a lot of updates that don't get names that are important and affect a lot of people. There are a lot of updates that get names that aren't as big as Google might want us to think they are.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot going on every day, and a lot of changes they make every week. And it turned into a whole thing too. Now, the thing I got interested in, because the more I looked at this and the more I studied it, I wanted to know, well, wait a minute, what about all this other stuff? What about the things that were popping up, like verticals and knowledge graph? How prevalent are those? And so I built this feature graph that tracks how often those things appear. And then that turned into almost a whole other part-time job for me.
Right.
It's become, a lot of my job is just raising the awareness of just how common these things have become, and just how infrequently you see a SERP with just 10 blue links. Where I really think most of the time those days are behind us, and there's something different and interesting going on that. And, really trying to raise awareness about how common that is now. This isn't some weird fringe case where these pop up. This is, 9 out of 10 SERPs are going to have something other than that classic organic link opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's spun into its whole, a whole other world.
Yeah. Jumping back to the research tool, the Keyword Explorer.
Yeah.
I want to run through some of these matrix. You have the difficulty score. Are all the three scores, the difficulty, opportunity, and potential, are those all scored from 0 to 100?
They are, yes.
Okay. So let's walk through that. The difficulty score is the competition, correct?
Yeah, essentially how authoritative are the people on that SERP right now?
Gotcha. And then the opportunity?
Opportunity is what's left of the organic clicks. So we basically start with 100%, and then we start subtracting things. So we subtract ads, and we subtract knowledge graph, and we subtract verticals.
Gotcha.
So one thing people don't always know is that the verticals, news, images, in-depth articles, and tweets, they all occupy an organic position.
Right.
So if there's a news result on page 1, and that's all, you're only going to have 9 organic.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if that news results at number 4, we just take out the click-through rate of number 4, basically. So we're using that classic curve where number 1 is getting most of the clicks, and then it's kind of falling off.
Gotcha.
Across the top 10. And so we subtract everything that's not a blue link and give you what's left.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's the potential?
That's the opportunity.
Oh, the opportunity. Okay.
So think of that as organic opportunity.
Okay.
And potential takes everything: volume, difficulty, opportunity, and importance, which is just a 1 to 10 score that you can apply. Everything starts with a 3, the way we built it. So you can move it up and down. Potential takes all of that and kind of creates a meta metric to say, what's the sweet spot? We want something with ideally a lot of volume and high opportunity and low difficulty and high importance.
Gotcha. So, and then the volume. Now, can you base that volume if you're doing local SEO versus?
Right now, no.
Okay.
Right now, that is essentially a U.S. volume. So,
gotcha.
Russ on our team is going to be putting up a post in about a week about that. But right now, that is U.S. focused.
Okay.
We're hoping to expand that internationally and locally, but it gets to be a very hard problem very fast.
Oh, I'm sure. That's a massive undertaking. All right. You got another question for him?
Well, yeah, just kind of want to dive into it. I know you're very hands-on with what's going on, behind the scenes, do a lot of research, always watching. Is there anything that you see coming up, or, what do you expect, or what can people in the industry expect over the next year, 2 years, because I know we have to look kind of in the future and adjust accordingly. Is there anything that you see we should be getting ready for, or changing our mindset on, or kind of what do you see going forward?
Weather prediction.
Yeah, weather prediction.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to see a lot of growth in this knowledge graph 2.0, even though they hate when I call it knowledge graph.
Right.
Featured snippets and related questions. We've seen huge growth in the last 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
I mean, in the realm of they've both since launched something like 3 to 4 times what they launched at.
Yeah.
In our data set, it's like 8% for one and 14% for the other. So we're not talking 1 out of 500 SERPs. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
We're going to see more of that. I think understanding how to get those boxes and how they work is going to be important. And I think it's fundamentally an SEO task right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So optimizing for the core knowledge graph, that's kind of a different thing. But this is an SEO challenge we need to pay attention to. They just changed it so that they have what they call related topics, and it's usually a group of 3 things related to what you searched on, and those are also coming from sites in the index. You used to have to click to expand those. Now on about a quarter of them, they're coming up pre-expanded.
Ah.
So that featured snippet, I've got one up right now. If somebody wants to look, you do CRM. It's kind of interesting because you'll get a lot of ads, and then you're going to get this box, and it's taking up a ton of real estate. So we're seeing
just CRM.
Yeah, just CRM, like CRM.
Oh,
stuff.
wow. Man, that's
So you see how the topics are
Holy cow.
pre-open. So yeah, that kind of thing where you're below the fold
Yeah.
in number 1.
Right,
SERPs
right.
are getting eaten up quick, man.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot more. So I think they're going to keep expanding that. And we definitely have to be aware of it. We have to be aware of structuring our SEO and our content around it.
Yeah.
And not only trying to get into that box when we can, but making sure whatever's in that box is compelling enough to pull a click and not just to give away the answer, like, as you talked about before. We don't want that to be, we want it to be a good enough answer to get there, but not so great that people just leave.
Right.
Yeah. So are those related topics? I didn't click on any of them, but are they all from the same site or are they different sites?
No, they can come from different sites.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they used to be mostly Wikipedia, and they kind of came out of the knowledge graph idea. And on this one, they are actually Wikipedia, but they're starting to expand that. So we're going to see it more and more. We're going to see them coming from other places. They're not the same as the snippet. They're not coming from page 1.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of a related topic idea. So for CRM, for people, since we're on the radio, the related topics are Salesforce, call center, and SaaS, software as a service.
Gotcha.
So they're trying to put in topical stuff and take you to another search. They're really trying to get you. Wikipedia is a little teeny gray link.
Yeah.
Call center is a blue link that takes you to another Google search.
Right.
Wow.
So they're trying to run you through this chain of searches and keep you on Google. Google has a problem in a sense that, I think there are 2 things they're really worried about. I'll get to one in a second because it's another direction we have to be aware of. But one of the things they're worried about is if you look at Google versus someone like Facebook, Google has a ton of traffic. I mean, Google is the authority for search. But we go to Google and we leave. We go to Facebook and spend hours there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so Google is fighting that battle. It's like, if we want people to click more ads, if we want to be more compelling, if we want to have a content aspect, how do we get people to come and stick around a while?
Yeah.
And so they are experimenting with these kind of things that actually lead you to do more Google searches and stay on Google as a platform.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think they're trying to experiment with that.
But they're also, there's a million different properties, YouTube, all those other things that they're trying to grab that attention with too.
Right. Yeah, that are taking you to other things Google owns.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think the other challenge they face is that we know is mobile. They know when mobile started to gain steam, mobile clicks on ads were terrible, and they really had to regroup. And so the other big thing I think we all have to be aware of is everything Google does right now is mobile first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I track in Mozcast that was kind of an accident, we started to look for new things we had never seen before every day basically in the source code, so to speak. And they would almost always launch on mobile first. And they were being designed for mobile. So if you look at things like these medical knowledge panels, they look a little weird, this blue thing kind of floating in space on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
They look great on mobile. Local 3-packs, they look great on mobile. These things were all designed for mobile,
Right.
and fit into desktop. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to be mobile right now,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to be aware that that's the world Google thinks we're headed to.
Right.
You know, and the things they build and the things they do they've said it, they flat out said it. They are designing mobile first.
It's funny when I pulled up that CRM, I don't know if you noticed, if you go, how far down the news section is. Maybe I'm going to get different results than you, but...
Yeah, I'm not seeing the news on that one.
Yeah. News is like halfway down. It's weird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got in-depth at the bottom of that one, so that's a really weird... Yeah, everything gets pushed down on that one.
Yeah, it's all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, so what would be your advice, or if you have a CRM platform? Give up.
You might want to pay for that one.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, be interesting. Now let's see what they are number one on that one. So okay. Yeah. I was going to see where they were on the page. Yeah, I don't know if you see, but I've also got 4 ads on top for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that was the other big change in the past few months was we lost the right column and we got 4 ads on top.
Yeah. I mean, everything is going mobile, you know?
Yeah. They have to figure out. And I think that was part of their problem, to have a completely different ad platform for desktop than for mobile.
Yeah.
And try to combine all those numbers and figure out what they meant. You know, for Google, that's how do we reconcile right-hand column performance on desktop with that not even existing on mobile?
Right.
And every change we make is going to affect both of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing.
Show ads in different positions, so, you know.
Yeah, I think that's one thing they need to work on more with mobile is their ads, the way they serve ads. I don't know how many times I'm either playing a game or, I'm going through a site and, just the placement of the ads are just in bad spots. But I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't think anybody knows. I don't think Google went mobile first because they wanted to.
Right.
I think they got really scared.
Yeah.
I mean, clicks were just falling. I mean, we know that. We don't know the numbers, but we know clicks were falling, and we know they were worried.
Yeah.
And so I think, it's easy to look at Google as all-knowing and all-powerful, and yeah, they're pretty powerful. $60 billion goes a long way.
Yeah.
But they're not all-knowing.
Yeah.
They don't know where this is headed either.
Right.
And so they're 6 months ahead of us, but they're trying to stay ahead of it too, and everything they do, they have to see what happens to ad clicks and what happens to revenue, and they have to balance it. I mean, to be fair, it's easy to play that conspiracy theory of all Google cares about is ads and they don't care about organic. Well, if they provide a horrible search experience and we never come back, they're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, organic has to be good enough to bring us back. So that interplay is always there. They can't just turn the whole page into ads, and
no, because
that'd be great for them for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And real bad a year from now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, look what it did to Yahoo. I mean, they just ad crazy, and then it just kind of got abandoned for the most part.
Yeah. And I think if they shifted that hard, they would. The interesting thing to me, and this is a hard one to tell people what to do because it's so niche. We're seeing a lot more knowledge graph ads. I'm going to call them. That's a terrible term, and Google would hate it. But
Yeah.
Things like hotel ads. So you'll see that local knowledge panel on the right.
Yeah.
And you can book a hotel straight from there, and that's paid.
Wow.
So if you look at a specific property, you'll see that panel. It tells you about the hotel, and it has pictures, and it has ratings and reviews. And then you're going to see that thing that lets you book, and there's there's a little yellow ads box there to tell you that that's paid. We're seeing that for, they did tests with local car dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're seeing that for home services now. We see it for books, movies, music, where you can watch something on Google Play, or you can listen to something on Google Play and other services. So they're starting to integrate ads in a much more contextual way.
Yeah.
And that looks like knowledge graph in a sense. So it looks very credible, but it also, to their credit, it's very powerful. If I'm looking up something about a movie and it's available online and I can watch it, well, they should put that there.
Right.
And so we're going to see ads become a much more integrated kind of thing. And I think the trick is what that means is different for every single industry.
Got to be in moderation.
Yeah. Well, right. They can't do that with everything, but they also, it's going to be a different game for every industry it's affected by. So if you're in hotels right now versus credit cards versus travel,
right.
It's a completely different world in paid, and I think that's gonna continue to diverge. So you really have to pay attention.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're down to about 5 minutes of the show. Before you go, I know you got to be somewhere. I want to talk about Penguin. We got coming up here pretty soon, the Penguin release. What do you see as pros and cons? What's that?
I have no idea.
You don't? What do you mean?
Oh, no, I mean, it could be in a week, and it could be in.
Oh, yeah.
We just.
I did get a hint.
It's so hard to tell what's going on right now.
Yeah.
I booked Gary from Google. I don't know if I even should say this, but he was. We booked him for August to be on the show, and I said, it'd be great if you come on the show right around the Penguin release sometimes. He goes, oh, that's nowhere near the Penguin release, but I couldn't get out of him if it was before or after.
Can we schedule you? That would be good. Can we schedule you within 2 weeks of the Penguin release? Just tell us when
breaking
news would be good.
You heard it here first.
Try and narrow it down. Yeah, no, I can't. I talk to Gary a lot more than. It's funny, I have a much better relationship with Google than I probably did 2 or 3 years ago. And no, he won't. Yeah. There's nobody's talking about that one.
Right.
And I don't know, on the impact, it'll be really interesting to see. It's been a long time,
mm-hmm.
so we naturally expect the impact to be high.
Yeah.
But my opinion, purely my opinion, from, again, Mozcast rolled out right before the original Penguin launched.
Mm-hmm.
Penguin was one of the first real punitive updates.
Right.
Google has always said that whatever the updates were, they were really focused on search quality.
Mm-hmm.
So they viewed quality as being consistent with their guidelines, but they weren't necessarily trying to punish you for not following a certain guideline, at least if that damaged quality.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to damage quality for the sake of being right, I guess, punishing you. And with Penguin, they said, you know what? No, we're tired of it. you're gonna knock this shit off, and we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah.
And I don't think they expected the kind of collateral damage that they got.
Yeah. Well, look at the people that have been sitting around for over a year now.
Yeah, I think that's why it's taken so long to update.
Yeah.
Because I don't even think they understood the impact it would have. And I think it caused a lot of things to happen that they didn't expect to happen and that maybe harmed quality.
Yeah. Right.
Hey.
And that's totally my opinion, but I think that's why it's taken so long.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think they're nervous to do that again, but it's the longer it takes, they don't want to do too much, but the longer it takes, the more the expectation is that they have to do something.
Yeah. We're about out of time, Pete. If we can, I'd love to have you back on the show again.
Yeah,
maybe sometime. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But we are out of time, guys. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show, especially Dr. Pete for being a guest. And listen in every Tuesday from 3:30 to 4:30. Visit searchtalklive.com. If you're listening to us on iHeartRadio, go to searchtalklive.com and subscribe to our mailing list. Listen to past shows. Email us. Ask us questions. We can take your emails. We have email addresses on. It's Robert@SearchTalkLive or Caleb@SearchTalkLive. We can answer questions through that way. Or if you're interested in possibly being a guest, hit us up.
Yep.
Thanks again, guys, for your support. We'll see you next Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.